Hello, welcome to my series about all Chopin's music. We continue our journey through Chopin's etudes. Today, our stop is on the etude in F minor, opus 10, number 9. This etude is not so popular as the other ones, and maybe one of the reasons is that pianists don't usually put it in the program on concerts as a solo piece. This etude is excluded from Chopin competitions when the pianists choose etudes in the first stage. They cannot choose this etude because it's not on the list. And probably you wonder why. And, well, of course, probably because the level of difficulty in this etude is a little lower than the other etudes that are on the list. But it doesn't mean that it's easy. It simply means that it takes less time to master this etude than other etudes like opus 10 number 1, number 2, number 4, even number 5 or number 8 or number 7. So most of the etudes that we know, that we hear them when we listen to Chopin competition. And I'm talking about Chopin competition simply because this event is making Chopin's music even more popular, because a lot of people are watching, right? And listening. But of course, not only. But mostly, pianists are playing this etude when they play the whole set. So when we hear all opus 10, we also hear this etude. So it's not that famous, it's not that popular, which is a little disappointing, especially when we go deeper into this etude, when we feel the message that Chopin is transmitting to us. Then I think we all will regret the fact that it's not being played so often. Because in fact this etude is deeply moving. It's one of the most moving etudes if it's played well, with deep understanding and with respect to the score. It is very moving. But okay, from the beginning, etude, so a study, exercise. What exactly Chopin wants us to improve writing such a music? Well, the difficulty is hidden. For a regular music lover who is not a pianist, not a musician, it is hidden because what we hear a simple melody. In the right hand, melody played with only one voice, right? Nothing really difficult. So it's not so spectacular, like all the other etudes we've heard. Yes, but this etude is the first etude for the left hand in this opus. Of course, in number 4 we had left hand playing fast, just like. Of course, it was for the left hand as well, but in that etude, opus 10, number 4, left hand was not really stretched. This etude, my friends, is very demanding, extremely demanding for the left hand, and especially for stretching the left hand. If we zoom a little bit the camera, maybe you can see better what the left hand has to do in this etude. Now I play for you only left hand. Let me play it again. So can you see how much I have to stretch the hand to play? And the tempo is extremely fast. So it's not so easy. And of course, again, we have to use our wrist and forearm to constantly moving it with the very supple hand. And the left hand is playing like this all the time, throughout the whole etude. There is no moment for the left hand to rest. Absolutely, all the time. So, the beginner pianist usually feel pain in the left hand when playing this etude. When the technique is not correct, when there is any tension in the hand, there is not enough stamina of the hand, then it's very difficult to play the whole etude. And of course, smaller hands also have this trouble. They have to jump much more than bigger hands. Chopin's hand was extremely supple. We know it. It was very flexible. So he was using this, the wrist. And Chopin didn't have big hand, but he was joking with his students that he has a huge hand. He showed the students that he can handle with one hand. He can handle 2 octaves. Those of you who are musicians, well, I show you. Let me show you. Well, I take this camera for a little bit and show you what Chopin exactly wanted to achieve. So, Chopin was joking that he can, with his small hand, he can handle 2 octaves. 2 octaves we have from this note to this. So much. And how he did that? He put the middle finger in this note, and then using not the middle, sorry, the second finger, the index finger, with the wrist, he played this note, and then without moving this finger, with the thumb, he played this note. So, when he used his wrist, that's how big hand he had. And in this etude here, he showed us that it was true. So, if we have it in mind, and if we really use the wrist, then we can play this etude in a relatively fast tempo and without so much problems. But still it is not easy, of course. So that's the main difficulty in this etude, but there is another difficulty, of course. And this another difficulty is very difficult to overcome. The difficulty is music. There are many Chopin's etudes in which we simply can put on the metronome and we can just play them with the metronome without thinking about, poetry so much. Like, for example, Opus 10 number 2, well, Opus 10 number 1 as well, but then we need a little bit some kind of interpretation. But Opus 10 number 2, Opus 10 number 4, C-sharp minor, Opus 10 number 7, Opus 10 number 8. These are etudes that we just need to learn how to play fast, have a good articulation. Of course, we need to sing and play it beautifully, of course. But what I'm talking about is there is not so much to do with interpretation. This etude, if it's played without interpretation, well, without feelings and without understanding, this is the best actually way to say that it sounds horrible. It sounds so horrible that if we hear this interpretation, we don't like this music, we don't like this etude, we don't want it, we don't want to listen to it, we don't want to play it. Tonight, in this movie, in this video, I want to show you that this etude is, as I said before, one of the most moving Chopin's etudes, which I personally put equally together with the revolutionary etude, C minor, Opus 10, number 12, the etude that Chopin put all his drama, his emotions after Polish uprisings collapsed. Here we have very similar message, very similar emotions, expressed in a little bit different way, but also deeply, deeply touching. So, two difficulties here, but technical difficulty with the left hand stretched and playing fast, and using the wrist. And another difficulty is to express the inner message, to interpret, to talk with the music. This is really hard in this etude. Okay, so now let's make something that we all love the most, I hope, the structure and especially emotional analysis of this music. Let's analyze the first part A, the first phrase. As I said, we hear the melody, but this melody is a little strange. It starts with these very short motifs. It's as if we are losing our breath, you know. It's like we try to say something, but we cannot. And this is exactly, and this Chopin writes agitato, so it's exactly if we take a breath in the rest that we have here after two notes, then this is exactly what this music expresses. And this is the first motif. It's very important. The first motif. Then we have a longer line. And until now, this etude is rather, well, how to say, not so dramatic. Because, you know, right? Not so dramatic. It could be finished in the other way, and then we would have a very nice, actually very nice music. But then, well, I do it on purpose, because what happens in the third bar, my friends, is unexpected, shocking, and very brutal. Chopin here writes con forza in the third bar and is doing something extraordinary. He is breaking the rule of how we should shape phrases. Everybody knows, every musical person and every artist, every performer knows that the last note of the phrase should be played soft. This is obvious. We never make accent on the last syllable, right? So I show it to my students usually when they bang the last note of the phrase. I tell them, no, this is not musical. You must not do it. It's ugly, simply ugly. Here Chopin destroyed this rule. He writes here, of course, he writes con forza, but listen, look at this. in this moment we have sforzato on the last note of the phrase, and even this accent. What does it mean? Well, Chopin is saying to us, bang the last note of the phrase, and it has to have some meaning. It must have some meaning, I mean. And later in the etude, well, when I was wondering what the meaning is, later in the etude Chopin showed me that this motif is very important. This motif con forza, which appears for the first time in the third bar, is extremely important. So let's listen to this now. The first phrase. And now, right in this bang, the last note, very, very, it should be dramatic. Well, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but dramatic. Again. And then answer. Yeah, and this was the opening, the answer, the question. And this is the first phrase, the first phrase in the whole musical period, in the whole part A. So, very unusual, and we feel scared. We feel it's dark, right? When we think it's dark, and then we are losing the breath. And this con forza motif is very meaningful. It has some kind of meaning. We don't know what meaning. I think this is a little the meaning that it must be. It must be like that. Something like the statement. And the second phrase is repeated without changes, exactly the same way, but sotto voce. So very, very silently, like echo. So we express something and then we are alone. There is nobody. So only the echo is answering us. The same thing. And now let's listen to the second part of the etude and try to guess, try to differentiate which of the motifs that Chopin presented to us before he is using and where. We had two motifs, in fact. The first one with these two notes, and the second motif, which was con forza motif, this one. You know, this the one that instead of letting the melody goes up, it put the melody down. Let's listen to part B. I mean the second musical period. We reached some drama here. And now, I don't know if you're good listeners, careful listeners, maybe it was not easy for you. I know, not everybody is so, how to say, so careful with listening and so smart musically by just listening to immediately catch these motifs. But some of you for sure made it. But now I show you exactly which motifs Chopin used. At the beginning, Chopin is changing the color. So, as I said before, we had dark. We were feeling afraid. Here we have a little bit like beautiful melody. And you know, there is a hope. If we listen to this etude for the first time, there is a hope that, oh, now we will hear Chopin that we love. Oh, he opens his soul. Oh, that will be a beautiful melody. What kind of melody? You know, like... But this is not the etude, of course. I'm improvising now, but in the Chopin style. We would love it, absolutely. But what happens? When the melody is about to flourish, suddenly there is this motif, this must be motif, you know. This, do you remember at the beginning, this motif when we had conforza motif. And this conforza motif comes with forte, exactly like at the beginning, and is brutally stopping this melody from flourishing. So there is some kind of fight in this etude. Musical fight. Let's listen. The melody tries to flourish. And now, and the second time. And again, 2 times this conforza motif. After that, Chopin is using the first motif 7 times. This we cannot speak. Only 2 notes. 7 times, and he reaches the climax with scream. And maybe the question, the scream. Listen, this. Sorry. Fortissimo. So this moment must be played very dramatic. The listener has to feel again cold, shiver. We don't want to be here. We want to escape. We want to run away. We will leave the concert hall. That's how the pianist should play this moment, in my opinion. Because what happened after that? This dramatic question. We have the most moving moment in this etude. Let's listen first, and then let's analyze it. What did we hear? We heard some conversation, but this was the symbol of loneliness. And if I were to use one word describing this etude, I would use the word loneliness. Here, Chopin dramatically asks the question. Or he's screaming. Sometimes I also call this motif calling for help. Like, you know, in the mountains, we are with a friend, and suddenly the friend just falls down, and falls down 100 meters, and we are alone, and we are screaming for help. Please help! And what we hear? We hear the echo. Only the echo is answering us, very silently, but with as much emotions as we used by screaming. And this is exactly what here we have in the music. We have this dramatic motif that is, I call it a Beethovenian motif, because we have, here we have 1 note repeated. And then the echo is answering, only echo, nobody here to help us. And again. And then everything is repeated. and everything comes back to the beginning. We have again part A. Will be a little different from what it was, because it will build up the climax, and it will again bring us to a very dramatic screaming moment. Listen. It should be the end of the etude, because we had A, we had B, and we have A now. A, B, A, like always. No, it's not. And here is another proof that this etude has some deep meaning, some deep musical, philosophical meaning. We have again this dialogue with the echo. So again we are lonely. But this time Chopin starts sotto voce. So he doesn't have power. Listen. But again, echo is answering us. And now suddenly, surprise, if you don't know the etude, you are shocked. Forte, fortissimo, we have power, we scream again one more time, with all the aggression, all the drama. Only echo is answering us. And the last time. And now everything ends in a magic way, like as if it was only a dream. Listen. The ending is spectacular. We would never expect this kind of ending in this etude. Everything just fade away. It was a dream. You know, in my opinion, this etude, it's very dramatic, it's very touching, it moves me deeply. This etude was written, in my opinion, more or less in the same time that the revolutionary etude, this which we are going to analyze soon. It expresses similar emotions, but in a little different way. And this screaming, this calling for help, this asking questions that we only have the answer from the echo. It reminds me of Chopin's Stuttgart's diary, when in one moment he is questioning the existence of God. He is asking, he is writing with all drama that he felt, God, do you exist? And if you exist, why you let Russians to destroy my country, to kill people? He was devastated, mentally destroyed, and he, a person who grew up from a Christian family, who believed in God, he can't understand why God is letting so much evil to exist in the world. So for me also this etude is a kind of philosophical piece of art, piece of music in that case, where a human being, such a small human, we are so small comparing to the world, comparing to the history, the universe, and God, we don't understand why so much evil, so much suffering and bad things exist in the world. So here we ask question to to God, to universe, to whatever you can call it, we ask the question, a rhetorical question, why there is so much evil? Nobody answers us. Only the echo answers us this question. Just like in real life, we will never in this life understand exactly why it is so. So anyway, that's the poem. This etude is just a poem. It could be called a prelude. If it had a different title, you know, it would be no problem, absolutely. Of course it is difficult for the left hand, but also with preludes we have some preludes which are, as you know already, very difficult, right? So let's listen once again to this beautiful poem, beautiful poetry, which by accident becomes one of the etudes. And let's try to differentiate everything what happens here. Everything starts agitato. We can't breathe. We are running, and then there is this conforza motif, which disturbs the melody going beautifully up. Then it happens again, and then again, and then again, 4 times. Then the melody becomes beautiful, but for a little, because again it's cut with this motif 2 times. And then we reach the first climax, we ask this question, we call for help, and then we have these dramatic questions. Why we have so much evil, or whatever you can imagine, but I just want to give some picture. Let's listen. This was echo. Beautiful melody, brutally interrupted. 2 times interrupted. Now we reach the climax. And that's how ends this beautiful, meaningful, deep poetry written by music. Thank you very much, and see you in my next episode.